I proposed twice to my girlfriend of 6 years, and both times she said not yet. Now I'm the villain for ending things. I, 41M, have been dating my ex-GF, 39F, for nearly 6 years. Our relationship was a good one. 4 years ago, I informed her family and friends I was going to propose to her while we were on a family vacation and received their blessing and well wishes. The night I proposed, I tried to make the night as memorable and perfect as possible. I asked her after a nice dinner surrounded by the family, and she said, "No, not yet anyways." I was quite hurt, honestly, and went back to our room to think things out and not overreact. A few hours later, she came to the room and asked me what was wrong and why I left the group. We had a fairly long conversation as to my feelings and her reason to deny my proposal. Turns out she didn't think I was ready for the commitment just yet. So I took her thoughts to heart and informed her I understand her reasoning. However, I was raised in a way where you take a no for a no, not a maybe next time. She asked me to just wait a bit longer until we were in a stable place, and I agreed. 8 to 10 months later, she started dropping hints that she was ready to be married. I can't wait for our wedding. Our wedding is going to be spectacular. I am so looking forward to my dad walking me down the aisle, etc. A little over a year since my first proposal, I decided to propose again, this time just us together after a wonderful date night. When I opened the ring box, she got really quiet and once again said, "No, not yet, maybe a little more down the line." After this second refusal, I fell out of love with her. It sounds cold, but it was the truth. When we got back home, I slept in our guest bedroom and spent the rest of the night thinking of our relationship. The next morning, she asked why I didn't sleep with her in our bedroom, and I told her the truth and informed her that I think we need to end the relationship. I informed her that I take marriage very seriously, and I do not want to be lead on, and this time, this no was the final no on the subject. I gave her a month to find a new place to live, and since then, I have been receiving texts and emails from her friends and family informing me I am a heartless bastard and trying to get me to give her more time and not be a callous asshole. My friends have my back on this and understand why I ended the relationship. Eta? Update 1. It has been a few weeks since I made the toughest decision of my life, and the fallout from my breakup has been overwhelming. I thought that by ending things with my ex-girlfriend, I could find clarity and move on, but I never anticipated the storm of messages from her family and friends. They have been relentless, bombarding me with texts and calls, calling me a heartless bastard for breaking her heart. It felt as though my life had turned into a whirlwind of guilt and frustration, and I was left to navigate the aftermath of my choice. I decided to take some time for myself, to breathe, and to process everything. One evening, I ventured out to a local bar with a couple of friends. I needed a distraction from the chaos that surrounded me. The atmosphere was lively, and laughter filled the air. My friends made an effort to lift my spirits, reminding me that I had made the right choice for myself. I appreciated their support, but deep down, I still felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. As the night wore on, I noticed a familiar face across the room. It was Sarah, my ex-girlfriend's sister. The moment she caught sight of me, her expression hardened, and I braced myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. She marched over, her anger palpable, and I could feel the tension in the air. "How could you do this to her?" she demanded, her voice rising above the chatter. I tried to explain my side, to express the pain I had felt after 2 proposals and 2 refusals. I wanted her to understand that I couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't ready for the same commitment I was. "You should have waited longer," Sarah shot back, crossing her arms. I felt my frustration boiling over, and I calmly reminded her that love should not be a waiting game. I wanted a partner who was just as invested in our future as I was. She continued to press me, her words laced with accusation, but I stood my ground. "Love isn't about hanging in limbo," I replied, my voice steady. "I've given her 2 chances, and I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for someone who isn't ready. After a heated exchange, Sarah stormed off, leaving me feeling unsettled. I returned to my friends, but the encounter lingered in my mind, a reminder of the messiness of relationships and the emotions involved. I had made my decision, yet it felt as though I was still battling echoes of my past. Days turned into weeks, and the messages from her friends continued to flood my phone. They pleaded with me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but I felt increasingly suffocated by their words. It was exhausting, and I was determined to move on. However, I found myself scrolling through social media late one night when I stumbled upon a post from her. It was a photo from our vacation together, and the caption read, "Missing the good times." I felt a pang in my chest, a mix of nostalgia and guilt. Did she truly miss me, or was she simply feeling the weight of the breakup? I wrestled with my emotions, feeling the pressure from all sides, but deep down, I knew I had to take control of my narrative. I decided that if I wanted to move on, I needed to confront my ex one last time. We owed it to each other to find closure, even if it was painful. I texted her and suggested we meet for coffee. I knew that face-to-face conversations carried more weight, and I wanted to see her expression when we spoke about what happened. She agreed, and we set a time for the following weekend. The day arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and determination as I made my way to the cafe. I wanted to hear her side of things, but I also needed to express my feelings one last time. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting at a table, nervously tapping her fingers against her phone. When she saw me, her eyes widened slightly, and I could see a mixture of relief and apprehension wash over her face. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice soft. "Of course," I replied, taking a seat across from her. I thought we needed to talk. The conversation began cautiously, with small talk about how we had been spending our time since the breakup. I could sense the tension in the air, but as we delved deeper into the conversation, I found myself opening up about my feelings. "I want you to know that I really did love you," I said, my voice steady. "But when you turned me down for the second time, it felt like a door was closed for good. I can't keep living in uncertainty." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I understand. I was scared, and I didn't know how to express that to you. I thought if I kept saying no, I could avoid the pain of making the wrong choice." Her vulnerability caught me off guard, and I found myself softening toward her. "But you didn't give me a chance to prove myself," I replied gently. "I was ready to commit, and it felt like you were pushing me away." She sighed, a mix of regret and sadness evident in her eyes. "I've been thinking about everything a lot since we broke up. I miss what we had, and I know I need to change. I want to try again, but I know it will take time." I felt a flicker of hope, but also skepticism. "You need to show me that you are ready to change, and I can't just take your word for it. It's going to take time for me to trust you again." She nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I promise I will work on myself. I just need a chance." As we finished our coffee, we both felt a shift in our dynamic, a tentative understanding that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. Update 2. A few weeks passed since that pivotal coffee meeting, and I found myself on an emotional roller coaster. I was cautiously optimistic, but still guarded. My ex-girlfriend had begun to show some changes, and I tried to keep an open mind while also protecting my heart. She would text me throughout the week, sharing her therapy experiences and the small steps she was taking to confront her fears. I was impressed, but still uncertain if it would be enough. One day, she invited me to a local art show that featured a collection of works by emerging artists. She was excited about it, claiming it would be a fun way to reconnect and spend some time together in a low-pressure environment. I hesitated, but decided to go. Maybe this was a step toward rebuilding our connection. As we walked through the gallery, I noticed how she lit up while discussing the pieces. Her passion was contagious, and I found myself enjoying her company more than I expected. We laughed and reminisced about old memories, and it felt like a small glimpse of the relationship we once shared. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still walking on eggshells. It was as if we were both afraid to delve too deeply into our past mistakes. As the evening progressed, I decided to bring up the topic of commitment again, wanting to gauge where she truly stood. "Do you still feel ready to talk about marriage?" I asked cautiously. She looked at me, her expression serious. "I know I said I wanted to try again, but I think it's important for us to take things slow. I don't want to rush into something I'm not ready for again. I need to show you that I can commit, and that takes time." I appreciated her honesty, but it also filled me with frustration. "But how will we know if we can move forward if we don't talk about the future?" "I get that. And I want that too," she said, her voice earnest. "But I need to focus on my growth first. I want to be the person you can count on." As we stood there, surrounded by vibrant art, I realized that I had to trust her process, even if it was difficult for me. We spent the rest of the evening enjoying the art and each other's company, and it felt nice to reconnect without the heavy burden of our past hanging over us. In the following weeks, I noticed a shift in our interactions. She was more open and engaged, and I felt like we were slowly building something new. However, the reminders of our past were never too far away. One weekend, we attended a wedding together. It was a beautiful affair, and I could see the joy on everyone's faces. As we danced and laughed, I felt a warmth spreading through me, but there was an underlying tension. During the reception, I caught her glancing at the couples around us, her expression thoughtful. Later that night, as we sat together on a quiet patio, I decided to ask her about her thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" She hesitated before answering. "I just can't help but think about the future, and how I want it to be with you. I can see us together, but I know I need to prove that I can commit." Her vulnerability struck a chord within me, and for a moment I felt hopeful. I took a deep breath and decided to share my feelings. "I want that too, but it scares me to think about committing again after everything that has happened." "I get it," she said, her voice soft, "but we can take it one step at a time. Let's focus on rebuilding our foundation, and then we can talk about the future." Her words resonated with me, and I felt a flicker of hope rekindle within me. Maybe this time, we could truly build something strong and lasting. As the weeks turned into months, I watched her work on herself, and I was proud of the strides she was making. I was still guarded, but I began to feel a sense of optimism. We were starting to talk about our future more openly, and she had even started asking me about my vision for marriage. However, I could see that the messages from her family had not stopped. One day, I received a particularly harsh message from her mother. She accused me of leading her daughter on and questioned my intentions. I felt the anger boiling within me. I had made my choice, and I was committed to working on our relationship. I decided to confront my ex about the messages. "Your family is still reaching out to me, and it's getting out of hand. I don't want them to influence our relationship." She looked taken aback, and I could see a mix of frustration and guilt wash over her. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'll talk to them, but they just want what's best for me." "I get that," I replied, my tone firm but understanding. "But I need to know that you're on my side and that we're in this together." She nodded, determination in her eyes. "I promise I'll talk to them. I don't want them to come between us." As the evening ended, I felt a renewed sense of commitment from her. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but we were both willing to put in the effort to build something real. Update 3. Months passed, and our relationship had transformed in ways I could never have imagined. My ex-girlfriend and I had learned to communicate more openly, and I began to trust her again. However, I still carried the burden of our past, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more we needed to address before moving forward. One day I received an unexpected message from her. "I think we need to talk about something important. Can we meet?" I felt a knot form in my stomach, unsure of what to expect. We agreed to meet at the cafe where we had our first real conversation after our breakup. When I arrived, she was already there, looking anxious, yet determined. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice shaky. I took a deep breath and nodded. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, clearly struggling to find the right words. "I've been thinking about our relationship and how far we've come, but I feel like there's still something holding us back." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. "I know we've been rebuilding our connection, but I need to be honest about something," she said, her gaze dropping to the table. "I never told you the full reason behind my hesitation to commit." My heart sank, and I felt a rush of anxiety. "What do you mean?" I had been seeing a therapist about my fears regarding relationships, and I realized that my past experiences had left a mark on me. When I turned you down, it was because I was scared of losing you like I lost others in my life. I thought I was protecting myself, but I see now that I was just pushing you away. Her vulnerability struck me, and I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. "I understand, but why didn't you tell me this sooner?" "I was afraid of how you would react. I didn't want to burden you with my issues, but I see now that it was unfair to you," she confessed. I took a moment to process her words. "I appreciate your honesty, but it feels like this is something we should have discussed long ago. I felt blindsided by your refusals, and it hurt me deeply." "I get that," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I'm ready to work through this together. I want to show you that I'm committed, and I'm willing to face my fears head on." As we sat there, I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and I felt a spark of hope flicker within me. "If we're going to move forward, we need to be honest with each other, even when it's hard," I said. "Agreed," she replied, a small smile forming on her lips. "I want us to be strong, and I'll do whatever it takes." In that moment, I felt a shift within me. I realized that while our past was painful, it didn't have to dictate our future. We could choose to move forward together, learning from our mistakes and growing stronger. As we left the cafe, I felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it with her by my side. We both had a lot of work to do, but we were committed to each other, and that was a solid foundation to build upon. In the months that followed, we continued to grow together. We both worked on our individual issues while supporting one another, and I was proud of how far we had come. We took things one step at a time, and I started to believe that we could create the future we both desired. Eventually, I found myself falling in love with her all over again. It was different this time, rooted in honesty and vulnerability. I knew that the journey would have its ups and downs, but I felt hopeful that we could weather any storm together. As I reflect on everything that has happened, I realize that sometimes relationships require more than just love. They need communication, understanding, and a willingness to confront the past to build a brighter future. It has been a long journey, but I believe we are finally on the right path, and I am excited to see where it leads us next. And so I find myself at a crossroads once again, not in despair, but in anticipation of what lies ahead.